Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Real Chumps. We're chatting about movies, feels like hanging out with friends. I'm your host, Marcel, and with me, as always, is my co-host, Danny.
This week, we conclude our month-long series of heist movies with the 2004 film National Treasure, directed by John Turtletub.
Turtletub? Turtletub.
I just just that. Screenplay by Jim Cormac Wibberley and Marianne Wibberley, based on the story by Jim Koff, Oren Aviv, and Charles Seegers, starring Nicolas Cage, Diane Kruger, Justin Bartha, Sean Bean, John Voight, and many more.
Before we jump into our movie today, we wanted to remind you to please subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Turn on those notifications. That way you never miss an episode.
To join in on that conversation, follow us on social at Real Chums. And if at the end of the episode you enjoyed it, we'd love it if you left a review or shared it with one of your friends. It really does help us get discovered. Roll that intro.
You have the question of the day?
I have the question of the day. So, National Treasure has got a little bit of history. I know you're a history buff.
I love history.
I love a history lover. Okay.
History lover.
Yeah, history lover. If you had to go on an adventure for a quest of mythic proportions, what time period, what historical connection would you would you go for?
So recently my kids have been in this obsession with Pocahontas.
Oh, interesting.
Which I had seen bits and pieces of. And then
the Disney Pocahontas?
Yeah, the Disney Pocahontas. And then recently I think they've watched it like 10 times in the last month.
I remember that face.
and so I think so right now I'm kind of like captivated by like early European settlers in America and like Jamestown and like all these early settlements. So I don't know, something around then. Actually, I have a pitch for you for a third National Treasure, which we'll get to it.
Oh, okay.
But it involves, I'll just tell you this. It's called National Treasure, Spirit of the Land.
Ooh, that's a pretty good title. How long did you work on that?
Here's the thing. We've been talking about how there's a missed opportunity for a third National Treasure.
Yeah.
And just last week, Nicolas Cage was doing an interview and he was asked, hey, when's the third National Treasure? And what did he say? He's like, if you're looking for treasure, Disney is not the place. Right? So like he basically put to bed
a third
will ever happen. Right?
Right.
So I don't know.
Until he's dead. And then they're going to reboot it with National Treasure. The Spirit of America.
Spirit.
Is that what you call it?
The Spirit of the Land.
Oh, Spirit of the Land, not America.
What about you?
Okay, so for a long time, I would have said like Greece. Like during a lot of that, I don't know, that time period of like great thought leaders and things like that. But I've because of Maya and the Three.
Oh, you've told me about this,
dude. That show is great. Jorge Gutierrez, I think his name. He's the animator who did The Book of Life. I'm like, I am shook that Jorge Gutierrez, that I haven't. I would love to do more with the ancestors of Mexico, the Aztecs. I think there's something there that just would be really cool. Yeah, I think I want that. I know recently they had there's a guy who they called like the real life Indiana Jones who discovered an entire city.
Well, lately I was watching that National Geographic special where they used that new technology. It came out like 6 years ago, that radar.
Yeah. That like maps
the land.
Yeah.
And they're finding just these entire like cities that are just hidden under like the rainforest, right? What is that radar? LiDAR technology. Last year, it's the LiDAR. Yeah. They found these like super highways that connect the Mayan civilizations, and people are realizing, oh no, these guys were a lot more advanced than they previously thought. I'll link here for one that a report CNN did, but it's really cool, like that LiDAR, and there's so much.
I don't know if you got a lot of like mythological of the stories from Mexico. I didn't, and seeing Mine the Three and the Book of Life and some of the, I'm like, there's like such cool character, just another different take on the gods.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that really good stuff. They did try to do something with the National Treasure series with Mesoamerica, but thumbs down.
Okay, let's jump into National Treasure. Okay, so tell me a little bit. All right, let me preface this. We decided to do last week. We did Gone in 60 Seconds.
Yes,
Nicolas Cage, and we decided then, you know what? Let's do another heist movie with Nicolas Cage. That being National Treasure.
Yeah, and we made a mistake. We made,
Put the clip here of Miles Morales in the latest movie where he's like, I made a mistake because he was growing a mustache.
Endorse baby powder. Apologize for endorsing baby powder. I made a mistake.
This has a heist in it, a couple of heists, but it's not a heist movie. This is an adventure movie.
Yeah.
But we wanted a Nicolas Cage movie. We were feeling very Nicolas Cagey. And I'm okay with it. I am a little sad that we did not do Baby Driver because that was slotted. I think you haven't seen it.
I haven't seen it.
And it's glorious. We will get to it. We'll keep it on the docket for sure. But we're here with National Treasure, and we hope you enjoyed the watch, and we're going to have a discussion on it.
Tell me, what is your relationship with this movie?
Bro, I love this movie with a burning passion. I probably quote it several times a year.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Like, you know enough to like quote it. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, and then on top of that, like, I think I watched this in theater. I'm trying to think if I don't know if I did. I can't remember. But I don't know. I don't know what it was. I think I just fell in love with I think part of it is just Nicolas Cage. Last week we talked about Nicolas Cage and his like the way he spoke to Eleanor.
Yeah.
And about cars and about, what he is. And I think he like he continues that like suave / this playfulness of a I don't know, just this such an intriguing character to life even more in this movie.
Yeah.
And I'm absolutely here for him as Benjamin Gates. And I can't tell you. I think I've easily watched this probably same as much as I've watched Remember the Titans.
Yeah.
20 plus times of some kind of some sorts, and it's just I don't know. Super great.
I'm seeing a correlation here with you, Danny, of Jerry Bruckheimer produced Disney movies with Remember the Titans and this.
But it's funny because I did like Pirates of the Caribbean, but I wasn't a huge fanboy of Pirates of the Caribbean. It's like I enjoyed it. I watched it now and I'm like, dude, these movies, the reason why they're legendary is because they hold up.
The first one.
Yeah, touche, my man.
Because the first one, we'll get to it.
Yeah, we'll get to it. But
I do believe it is similar to how I feel about Jurassic Park. It is a nearly perfect screenplay.
Yeah, it's
from the character development. We'll address it one day.
Yeah. So I also I think part of it is I freaking Diane Kruger as Abigail Chase.
Mm-hmm.
She was a babe. I love that she was like a strong woman in leadership and then they have this the kind of the love situation that they develop as Gates kidnaps her. And Riley Poole is a fun character.
Riley, dude.
I just think he hits some of the best lines.
Yeah.
Yeah. What is your relationship with this movie?
I've seen this several times, right? It's been probably like a good 8 years since I last saw this, though. But this is one of those movies where you started at the beginning of the episode saying I'm a history buff. I love history. I'm a history enthusiast. But this was during my early phase of I had read Angels and Demons, The Da Vinci Code, Dan Brown, these
phenomenal
movies or these books, right? There hadn't been the movie yet.
I have a follow-up question.
Yeah.
Have you read Digital Fortress?
I haven't. I know.
I always ask this because like Digital Fortress probably is the first Dan Brown book I read.
Okay.
Anyways, and it's really good. I enjoyed it a lot.
But this was my face of like loving academics who go in these adventures with riddles and
so like
codes.
Indiana Jones is this where like, or is this?
Yeah, Indiana Jones. I mean, I've always loved Indiana Jones, but I think like this was my first time like reading like quote unquote. I was like 14 years old, and I was reading like an adult book about these topics,
historical
fictions, right? And so I think for me, it was just like I was just enamored by this type of storytelling. There hadn't been a Da Vinci Code movie or an Angels and Demons movie, so like this was the closest in 2004 that we were getting to a Dan Brown style of movie.
Oh, right? Good point.
So I think like I fell in love with this movie because of that, because of my love for Da Vinci Code and Angels and Demons, and then this was a version of that in US, right? And so like that's where my love came for this. Nicolas Cage is always just great. We've talked about him. Sean Bean,
I love Sean Bean in this movie.
He is. This is also like my face of like, oh, this is Sean Bean once again being like the villain, right? Because I knew him from GoldenEye.
Yeah.
And so then Lord of the Rings becoming this tormented individual. So it was just like, oh, this is Sean Bean just being Sean Bean.
Have you seen Legend? I think
Legend.
Yeah, Sean Bean stars in this series called Legend. Is it Legend or Legends? Legends. It's from 2014 to 2015. It didn't have a long run. But he plays this like deep cover agent who his because a legend is what they call when you take on a undercover identity for this opera. Anyways, it's a really good series if you want a Sean Bean that's not villain.
Yeah. Legends.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. 20 episodes.
Yeah, 20. It's up your valley because it's finished. You can plow through it and call it a day. But yeah, he does play quite a bit of villains or villainous characters.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's my watch list.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I love this movie. I think the adventure aspect of it all, right? Of coming across a map, finding clues that are based on history, and then finding that great discovery, whatever that may be. So I think this movie was prime for me because of my love for Dan Brown at that moment in time. So
I know this is not a heist movie.
I watched this and then I texted you. I'm like, hey, I just finished it.
Yeah.
I don't think this is a heist movie.
I made a terrible mistake.
But here's the thing. I watched it this most recent time with the mentality of this is a heist movie. And when the movie ended, I literally sat down for like 5 minutes. I was like, why do I remember liking this more? I was kind of like annoyed. I'm like, I thought this was better. And like this, I used to love this movie so much. And this most recent viewing, I was just kind of like, this isn't good. And then I got thinking more about it. I'm like, no, it is good. It's just that I'm looking at it from a heist lens.
Yeah.
And that's not what this is.
No, it's not.
This is full on an adventure movie.
Yeah.
And that's when I texted him, like, this is not a heist.
Yeah.
But it's a phenomenal adventure movie, right? Yeah. Similar to like the Mummies movies, right?
Yeah.
There's heist, right? They steal certain things, but they're not heist movies. They're adventure movies. And so like, I thought it was so unique that for me, when I looked at it from like a lens of a heist movie, I hated this movie. it like I had to talk myself out of that and be like, no, dude.
Yeah.
You like this movie. This is an adventure movie. And then like when I broke it down as an adventure movie, I was like, yeah, this is solid.
Yeah. But let's talk about that heist of the Declaration of Independence. Well, I mean, you want to start there? Is that okay?
Yeah.
I mean, let's just get the heist out of the way and then we can talk about some of the amazing other things. One, I just want to read the line. So Riley Poole, they've left trying to talk Abigail into the fact that somebody is going to steal the Declaration of Independence. I freaking love that scene. It's awkward, which gets points in my opinion. It's a little bit of a meet cute for for Ben, or it's a mini cute for Ben and for Abigail, and them already. Have you talked to the FBI? Yes. National Security? Yes. Like going through the checklist and just there. Anyways, but they go down to the viewing area and Nicholas says, 180 years of searching, and I'm 3 feet away. Of all the words written here about freedom, there's a line here that at the heart of all the others. But when a long train of abuses and assertions pursuing invariable the same object and same object evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government, provide new guards for their future security. People don't talk it that way anymore. That line is probably one of my favorite lines of of the film. That like people don't talk the way that people thought back then. And he doesn't, this character did not think the same way as other individuals think. And I just think, and then, they start planning and he says, I'm going to steal it. What? I'm going to steal the Declaration of Independence. And then he walks off and it commences the heist planning.
Let's talk about the heist planning. What stood out to you this most recent time? Now that we've had a couple weeks of like a heist and like how movies portray the planning of a heist and the execution of it. What stood out to you?
So I actually was surprised how much detail went into the plan and of us be part of that planning. Sometimes in heist movies, they kind of do a sleight of hand when it comes to the planning of the heist, because it's kind of like the reveal. It's like they plan for things and they start doing things, but then it isn't until we actually go to the actual heist, the job, that do we get actual actualization of what some glimpses that we've gotten. Whereas in this one, they go to the Library of Congress and they bring out the map or all the infrastructure and trying to look at this stuff and then talking about tech. There's setting up for surveillance and getting the loop that they need, and understanding that they are going through this thing as not a heist crew. I think is like impressive.
Yeah. I think that's what's two main things stood out to me. That aspect that it's very amateur. The planning of it, because they're not professional heists, and you're having this juxtaposition between Ben Gates and Riley, how they're planning for it, and then you have Sean Bean's character, what's his name? Ian, right? And how as mercenaries or professional thieves, whatever you want to say it, how they're planning for it. So it's that's what stood out to me, is just like you have these amateurs who are doing it, quote unquote, for the protection and safety of the Declaration of Independence, versus these other ones that are just like, we'll get it by whatever means, even using force, right? And it's just a cool contrast between one preparation versus the other. The other thing that stood out to me was just how like the heist ends like at the beginning of the second act.
Yeah.
And it's just like boom.
Yeah.
It's then like
it's the catalyst.
Yeah.
And yeah.
It's interesting because like even watching the trailer, they really marketed this as like, we're stealing the Declaration of Independence. Like not that they marketed it as a heist movie.
No.
But that's really definitely like what they leaned into. Like, I'm stealing the Declaration of Independence.
But I think it's part of it because it's a bold thing to do.
Yeah.
We always think about money. We always think about like huge things. Obviously, this is not a heist movie, but I mean, they use the like UV ink on a pen or a coin for George Washington presidential campaign to get Abigail's finger to be able to figure out what the code is.
Yeah.
I mean, like this is stuff that we actually didn't get in like half of the or almost all of the heist movies that we watched.
That's true. Which goes back to like my comment of like, even though it feels like these are a bunch of amateurs executing on this project, they've clearly laid out a plan, and have it. It was written in a way to really help us buy it into their ability to pull off this heist.
Which is and they both of them operate in it's a 2-man crew, but they're operating as multiple persons for the jobs.
Yeah.
Which I think you still have a crew, but to me, I think the heist, although it's not for a heist movie and we don't get much anything else, and it is an adventure movie, I thoroughly enjoy this heist every single time I watch it.
Yeah.
Like the whole breakdown of Abigail catching Ben at the event, the gala, and being confused on why he's there. The little cat and mouse that they end up playing, and him having to buy the Declaration of Independence for like 37. I can't remember.
$35.
$35
plus tax.
Plus tax. And he's like, "Oh, okay. Can does any I love that sound design there. Just he's like stumbling with everything. It's phenomenal.
Yeah, the heist in itself it's fun.
It is.
It's fun. It's quirky. And then again, you have I think I shared this in Gone in 60 Seconds. I love when my heists it isn't just a heist for heist's sakes, but you incorporate elements that create tension. Right? With Gone in 60 Seconds, you have 72 hours to get me 50 cars.
Right.
You have a countdown, a deadline. Here, that Ian and his crew are most likely going to do it, right? That's what Ben says.
Right.
And then when you have Ian show up and they start shooting at him, like it create, or you're cutting back and forth between the two groups, getting into the vault.
Yeah.
I love that tension created from the screenplay.
I think this is part of the reason why this film kicks off so well for an adventure film. And I think it was actually really smart. I mean, I just think about I'm realizing it was actually really smart of them to open up with a heist rather than some other thing that they could have maybe possibly done, right? Mm-hmm. And I think part of that is because heists have this tendency and this specific ability to initiate that sense of tension very quickly, especially when there's a time frame, like you said, right? There's a pressure, an external pressure of some kind that means that they have a window in order for them to do it. And because this happens, we are immediately we get an adventure of how are they going to do this? Are they going to be able to pull it off? And are they going to make it through? Right.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think they did such a phenomenal job getting us through there, and then having it take a breath with him taking, even with the whole chase scene, Abigail in the car trying to get the Declaration and her, getting kidnapped. But then after the fact, the situation, you just stole the Declaration of Independence, and freaking out and be like, are you hungry? What? Are you okay?
Are you hungry? I forgot that line.
I love that line, dude. Are you hungry? What? Are you okay? No, I'm not okay. Anyways, super great. I just, it's great. And I honestly, I'm trying to think now. I've, talking about this now. I'm like, do I love heist movies because of the crew, but I think I just love heists in movies.
Yeah. I agree. I think going back to the heist aspect, I do, as great as it was executed, I do miss though the ensemble and
yes,
the big group and everyone has their
jobs,
right? The fact that Riley is both the tech, the driver, the getaway driver, and the comic relief.
Yeah.
It's a lot, right?
Yeah.
Like, you got lucky finding Riley.
Yeah.
Because he can do it all. So I do miss those elements of it, but it's carried by, I think, by Ben Gates' characterization. The fact that he is this historian, this scholar, and that he makes his connection with Abigail. He points out the George Washington coin, right? And gets it to her and has these interactions like you mentioned when they see each other at the party. I love his toast that he gives, right?
Yeah.
Let me see if I can find the...
Yeah, it's to traitors.
Oh, he says, okay, a toast. A toast? Yeah, to high treason. That's what these men were committing when they signed the declaration. Had we lost the war, they would have been hanged, beheaded, drawn, and quartered, and my personal favorite, and had their entrails cut out and burned, right? And burned. So here's to the men who did what was considered wrong in order to do what they knew was right.
That line.
It's so good.
There's so many lines of just like these, again, people don't talk that way anymore.
Yeah, yeah. So I think for me, that's like this back and forth, these moments of tension and execution make the heist really, really fun.
Yeah. So although it's not a heist movie, I give their heist an A+.
I give it an A-.
A-, that's fine. Still an A.
B+, A-.
I just really love Riley. I think that's part Riley Poole's character is freaking a hoot.
Let's talk a little bit about the characters. I know we've been talking about them a bit, but who's your favorite character in this and why?
Why don't you start first on this one?
I think this most recent watch, I really like Sean Bean. I really liked Ian. Right? He gets brought into this. We're given a little bit of context that he's been working with Ben for the last 2 years, mainly funding him because the Gates family name just has no
tarnished.
Yeah, it's tarnished, right? Among scholars. So I like that we get this opening scene where they're all chums, they're all buddies. They hang out. We played poker together. I can't bluff, right? They have all this back and forth, but then we see his frustration in just following clues to another clue to another clue to another clue, right? And for him to say like, I'm going to steal the Declaration of Independence. For Ben to hold that stand and say, no, let's not do that, and then just quickly turn. But then we see him throughout the rest of the movie become this leader, really, really appreciate and understands the value that Ben brings, right? And he knows that he can't do this without Ben. And so I like this back and forth that they have. And the scene where they're on the boat.
Yeah, on the carrier.
On the carrier, yeah.
Phenomenal scene.
And he's talking to him. Like, I think that just shows for Ian that he can only get so far with his own knowledge, right?
Right.
And his need to rely on Ben, I really like that dynamic.
There's a weird, I think it was later in my watching period that I started to really appreciate Ian's character.
Yeah.
And like you mentioned, the opening scene does a lot of heavy lifting.
Yeah.
And I think they do it quite effectively in the sense of like establishing this symbiotic relationship between Ben and Ian's character, because they're equals in they're maybe not equals, but like they're characters of this for the same coin. But they're different sided, right? And Ben, who is going there for the history, the nationalists of like of being like wanting to prove that like America's great and like this is something that should be cherished and recorded. Whereas Ian, he also wants to appreciate it, but he wants to appreciate for himself. Or for his, him and the people that help him get there, right? And he does care for Ben. And that he appreciates and understands that Ben, like you said, is the only person that can get him to what he needs. His character, I also really appreciate Sean Bean's, like, his portrayal of Ian. I find it, he always feels, when he does get frustrated, it's not that he loses control, but he's trying to play the chessboard.
Yeah.
And I think what is intriguing is that as he starts to become more aggressive on the chessboard, he finds himself facing Ben, who I don't think he anticipated being as skillful in his play. And I think we see that when, towards the end of the heist and he thinks they have the Declaration of Independence, and he pulls it up and he's like, well played. Right. And but this continues with like the cat and mouse that they play, which but it's always, he's not far off from what Ben is.
Yeah, and I think that moment when they get to when they're looking the do good letters.
Dude, yes.
Right? And Riley has the little kid go and like count the letters and write them down. And I mean, movie magic, but he just what's his face? Ian and his crew just having to show up at the right moment, right? Like he's not far off. And I think that's what makes him a good antagonist. Is that one, he's always right there, but two, he understands his limits and his need to want to get Ben to support him in finding not support him, but in leaning on Ben for knowledge, right? Because he has more of this historical knowledge. So I think that's what makes a great dynamic and great combination between the two, which I think you could have written Sean Bean's character Ian as just this I don't know, grunt who's just only in it for the money. And yeah, Ian is in that. You talked about these selfish reasons, but there is a level of this dynamic. I love how you said it. This symbiotic relationship that they have, and it really plays well because again, you could have just ran him as someone who's just uses force to get his means, but he's aware, he's attentive, and it creates a great dynamic between the two characters.
Yeah, it helps the movie at times move along, but there's a times I think there's a little bit of a battle of pacing towards the end. Not like aggressive battle of pacing, because they speed up and slow it down at different times, which I think is needed. But I think that sometimes they slow it down too much. When with Ian's character and his team coming after Gates and his crew. Yeah. Okay, I want to talk about the dad, played by John Voight, Patrick Gates. How is it? How do you see Patrick in this role? I mean, he comes in, during the do good letters. We don't get him until later on when he gets kidnapped, or he gets, kidnapped by Ian and his crew. But I think he's a skeptic. And so I don't know. I wanted your take on this character, especially as I, pondered and I, watching this film. He doesn't have a big role, but I feel like he's not in much of the film, but when he is in it, he plays a pivotal role. At least that's what I think. What were your thoughts?
I wanted more out of the father-son dynamic. The first thing on my notes was John Voight's wig in that opening scene is too dramatic. That wig, man, they went hard with it. But I almost kind of wish, not that I have anything against John Boyd, I kind of wish that Christopher Plummer, who was the grandpa, had been cast as the dad, because I just love Christopher Plummer.
Dude, I agree.
I think he would have been. He was great in that 3-4 minutes
opening,
setting the stage. But yeah, I think I was like, oh man, I kind of want more of Christopher Plummer in this. I think they do a good job at like setting up this strained relationship, and it also adds another dynamic to this adventure movie, right? We know how personal it is from a family perspective. To say, we're told at the beginning of the movie, right? This secret was passed down to great grandfather, right?
Right.
And we've been chasing this and whatnot. And then you have Patrick, the dad, who says, like, this is just a bunch of baloney, right?
Yeah. You know what that dollar represents? The Gates family fortune.
Yeah. Right. And so, like, we're introduced to that, but I would have liked to have seen. I don't know if in another rewrite you have the dad come along, because once they bring him to the Trinity Church, and you're giving glimpses of how he's also piqued and interested when they have the Declaration of Independence, laying on the table, and they're finding the message. I love that he is, as much as he hates this cloud that's been hanging over the family's name for generations, he is piqued by it, and piqued by, could it be real? Could it not be real? So I like that aspect. And then when you bring him into the Trinity Church, and you find a staircase and they're going all the way down, I love that dynamic. I would have liked to have seen more of the strain, and I think we get enough of it, but I think I would have liked to have him join earlier on.
Interesting. I actually think they had just the right amount. I think part of it is because when I think about the way, because like Abigail and Ben are changing clothes, and he's like, we're gonna go see my father. She's like, and they have a discussion. He's like, well, he thinks I was a little bit cavalier with my I love it. She's like, what did you? He's like, well, if you said I love you to somebody? Yeah. Have you said it to multiple people? Then yeah, my father would think you're a little cavalier in your love life too. We get the sense that there's a little bit of history of maybe because of he got caught up in the family legacy.
Yeah.
That he lost the individual that he loved. And then Ben, because his grandfather also instilled, because of Christopher Plummer, this passion of history and what their legacy holds, and what it could be, a treasure of unimagined, that they, and then the moment, like you said, that scene, I think the scene that they're looking at the Declaration of Independence and them keeping him in the dark, and then finally finding what that is, that he does pique his interest, but then he goes back to saying, that's what you're going to do. You're going to find one clue, and then you're going to find another clue, and that goes on, and you're never going to reach the end. And him trying, like, desperate, like, he sees that this is just a next step, but he knows that high.
Yeah.
Just like a drug addict or an alcoholic, who's recovered, understands what that trigger might be. It doesn't mean that you're going to ever be, if you could, you're going to, it doesn't, and never ends well.
Yeah. But I would have loved for him to lean into that addiction, so to speak, right? Into that high, and just been like, fine, I'll go on this journey just to prove to you
you're wrong.
That you're wrong, right?
Okay.
I think, and you add more of that like tension. I really, really, really love that final act. They're in the Trinity Church, and they're both like bouncing ideas off of each other. They're sharing their knowledge, right?
Like riffing,
And I think that would have been fun to see more of during the movie. He's in the second one, right? I haven't seen the second one.
Dude, it's been years since I've seen the second one. I think he is a little bit more, but I don't remember.
So I'm curious to see if there's more of that. But I really liked seeing that. Yeah, like you said, that riffing off of each other and kind of like sharing their knowledge of American history.
And I think this is where I think, because I can see what you're saying, but I mean, I think at the same time, like him getting captured, because like he gets tied up with a soda and the FBI or the FBI.
Yes.
Show up at his door.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in here. All right.
On time. Yeah.
So him playing off at like that he's like, well, they tied me up, and not giving the detective who Harvey Keitel.
Oh yeah.
Phenomenal. I love him as the FBI agent who very poised. Super professional. I always find he's like the silent observer of like a chess game, and he's just trying to like see if he can find that next move prior to the other people making their next move.
Yeah.
Anyways, just
I wanted more of that.
I think I don't disagree with you. In fact, I think that this movie would have been better if there was a little bit more pressure from Harvey's team.
Yeah.
Because like it would have been interesting to have like another scene, a scene with him with Gates prior, or some other interaction.
Yeah.
Because I think he is the other player on the board that would have added that additional tension, that elevates the danger that they face with Ian. Because Ian is a loose cannon when it comes to, because we know at the very beginning he completely flips and is willing to kill the people that he was just funding.
Yeah.
And so we know that he can be a loose cannon, or at least just flip on a dime. So having the pressure of the FBI there, I think would have been really just added one extra layer of that tension that could really make the thrill of this adventure a little bit more. I mean, if we look at the Mummy, we have Imhotep. That's a pretty big threat of like the world being consumed by this mummy or whatever. And so there's a big threat there. Whereas in this one, we have threat, but it's just more of a cat and mouse thing that neither of them are willing to harm. Not that they're not willing to harm each other, because Ian, we obviously thought he was dead, but
right. Yeah, I think you're right. I think I would have wanted to see more. I like how you said more of a pressure from the FBI, right, and from Sadusky's character. I always thought, and again because of when I first watched this, because I was reading Dan Brown and whatnot, I always figured that because you do see they do a heavy like zoom into his Masonic ring, right?
Yeah.
There at the end.
Yeah.
But you do see it earlier.
Yeah.
And so I always thought, oh, this guy knows where the treasure's at. Right. Yeah. And he's gonna do his part as a member of the Masons to make sure they don't find it, right? So I and to this day I always, because that's such a Dan Brown thing to do. Like there's someone on the inside, right, who's playing this double role.
Yeah.
So I think to this day, I still feel like I wanted more out of this character.
Yeah.
More involvement and more aggressiveness, more of an antagonist. This could have been a perfect dual antagonist, which I don't see Sadusky or the FBI as antagonists in this movie.
No. They're just the third party that is trying to get the Declaration of Independence. Yeah. And honestly, like, again, this to me, like, easily they should have been.
Yeah.
I mean, they stole the Declaration of Independence, the most important document. You don't think the entire freaking force of the FBI would have come into effect? NCIA?
NCIA, yeah.
Come on.
Right. But he's great. He's great in the role, in what little we get of him, and I think I wanted more out of that character.
All right. Let's talk about quickly some of our favorite moments of the film. Or do you want to talk about Abigail? We're coming up on time, and so
let's get your favorite moments.
You start.
We've talked a lot about that scene, the gala scene and the heist and everything. I really, really enjoyed that just because we get this tension. We see Ben interact with Abigail. They have this back and forth. He chugs the champagne to calm his nerves and goes and pulls off the heist. I love that aspect. But there is something for me like really rewarding about getting into Trinity Church, going down the staircase that I wasn't expecting. I think I always forget that staircase scene just because it feels very Indiana Jones. And it's something that we don't see prior, right? It's not like they're going into all these different areas that are booby trapped or anything like that, right? It's just them following clues that take them to Pennsylvania, to Philadelphia, to wherever, right? And it's not threatening. Whereas here we finally get like, we really lean as a story, we really lean into like an ancient quote unquote tomb or an ancient vault, right? And everything's like falling apart, and not that it's booby trapped, but like just the nature of it being so old becomes dangerous.
Yeah.
And it's a great tension to get to the end of the movie and you have what now feels threatening. Whereas I don't feel that the rest of the movie. Again, we just talked about how the FBI doesn't feel like the FBI really is that concerned.
Right.
We know that Ian isn't going to hurt Ben because he needs him for information. Whereas here now it's like, oh, there's danger. And then Shaw falls and dies, right? And it's like, now we get that. So I often forget that staircase scene. And I just really like it. I feel like it's executed really well.
Yeah.
And also, like, I feel like nowadays that scene would be relied heavily on the volume, or just a green screen. Yes, there's obviously CGI elements into it, but like, it's fairly practical for the most part. It's an actual built set and a lot of choreography and stunt work that happens in that, and it adds and elevates to that tension.
I appreciate because I agree with you. I think that scene is probably some of my favorites, especially because it slows down the pacing of the film a little bit, mm-hmm. because they like they're in the church. They we get the wonderful payoff of Ben Finger's bifocals of like seeing this not only the Declaration of Independence continues to give. It's that we get the sequence for the do-good letters, and then we then get the bifocals to then add another layer to the Declaration, and having it play another pivotal role in this next step of finding this treasure. But them coming in, I'm with you. I truly love. I think they with the skills, what they had to make this scene. They did a really good job with set design, in the sense of making it feel ominous. That like this has been below this building for centuries and no one has like figured it out. That like it just felt like this is a hidden treasure that for sure holds something.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, like, Ben, we got to keep the status quo.
Mm-hmm.
But he's like basically like, we're only good until we're
not needed anymore.
Until we're not needed anymore, right? And I think this again. I think I see where you're saying is like having the father and son play a little bit more in that. But actually, like I appreciate that the payoff comes here at this moment where they're closest than they've ever been.
Yeah.
Right. And the fact that like they take the pipe and they put it into the socket and they're not quite sure. They try to figure it out and they don't feel like it's there. And his dad again believes, and he's like, who cares if this takes us on like another journey, right? We will figure this out.
Figure it out, yeah.
Right. I don't know. There's something rewarding in that for sure. And so I don't know. It's really great.
It's good. And it's funny because I always forget that. I always remember them like going to the Trinity Church and then finding the treasure, but I always forget that like that whole sequence of the staircase.
It slows down quite a. I think that's part of it. It's like from Trinity Church into that scene, it gets a little slow.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not necessarily a bad thing. I just think that they were trying to build it up. I do think that like I could see because if I'm remembering the second one, I think they were trying to go a little bit more like Indiana Jonesy,
more actiony.
Yeah, like they have to find a treasure, or like the next thing, and it's a little bit not booby trapped, or you're trying to like interesting clues in this more like ancient part of the country. Anyways, but I can't remember very well. In any case, I always love the reveal of the treasure.
Mm-hmm.
Riley, are you crying?
Because of the staircase.
Oh, look, more stairs. Yeah, I think it's pretty, and I think the score just alone with kind of the fact that people came and they're holding a history of all histories.
Yeah,
pretty awesome. I think for me, if I'm going to pick a scene, I really love the Benjamin Franklin bifocal chase.
Okay,
leading up to it, like the ploy with them trying to figure it out, and he's like, can I get that $100 bill? And she's like, he's like, I will give you my watch,
my submarine,
which is way more than what that $100 bill, so that as collateral, and then finding out and Riley being like, "Oh, you don't know this? What? Wow, is this how you feel
all the time?
All the time?" Riley. Okay. Anyways, I don't know. I just really love, and then going into being able to like having a reset and finding, and then having the chase pick up.
Yeah,
it's a small scene, but I think it's always a good time.
It's always a good time, and it gives us those moments for like character development among Abigail and Ben.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Pretty great.
Last thing I want to talk about, I love the opening sequence, the flashbacks, of like the history and the Knights Templar. It's really fun. It's really good. It's filmed really well, and it's just such a fun sequence.
So I didn't want to bring this up. I'm glad I kind of forgot about it, but I don't know if they learned their lesson or they felt like they because like Gone in 60 Seconds has a similar, they try to do some sort of setup with the opening title, and I think they should have done something similar to this, like of like Memphis Reigns having or Kip with who's the guy from I remember the Titans, Atwell or
yeah.
They have the later on he talks to him about why his brother left. Anyways, something similar where we had like a little bit of a flashback, because you're not wrong. The opening sequence is truly legendary.
It's great.
It immediately makes you feel like I want to be part of an adventure.
Yeah. Yeah. And going back to like the Mummy, like the Mummy has that really cool opening sequence, right? Where we see like the betrayal, and, like we're in Egypt. Even like the second one with the rock, like that's really fun. Like seeing the Scorpion King and that, giving us that context. Really fun. I love that.
Yeah. Any gripes?
I think this last time I was getting a little bit annoyed with Ben just being like the know-it-all. This like just, I don't know why. This is just last time I'm like, all right, Ben, like tone it down, man. Like I get it. You're smart. You're cool. But
this is why I love Riley. Because like Riley's always trying to like be the person that helps chime in, and he's like, like never in. That's the scene, the moment where he's like, oh, is this how you guys feel all the time? Oh, that's great.
yeah. But no, like I think overall, great adventure movie. solid adventure movie.
Solid adventure movie. Agreed. I'm a little bummed we didn't do Baby Driver. But I'm glad we did another Nicolas Cage. It is just a reminder that like I really enjoy Nicolas Cage.
It's a reminder that Nicolas Cage, no matter what he does, and I know there was that phase where he was just doing whatever movie because he owed a lot of money to the IRS, so he was just taking whatever. But it's just another testament that Nicolas Cage, when he comes to a project, he gives it his all. And I think that's something that like really like talk about, because he's an actor who obviously loves what he does, that even in a small whatever movie, he will just understand the character and say, here's how I want to portray it, and I'm just gonna own it.
Yeah.
And I think we're living in an age, not that there's anything wrong with like the Timothée Chalamet of the world. He's great, he's awesome. But like these actors who are very strategic in what roles they take.
Yeah.
Whether it's for the paycheck, whether it's for the awards.
Yeah.
They're very strategic, and their PR team like very strategic. But Nicolas Cage, in whatever situation he's in, he will just take that role and say, "Okay, here's the vision of the screenwriter. How do I bring that to life?" And he's incredible at that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think he's like Keanu Reeves. Like there's this level of Hollywood professionals that they're always they're in it for the craft. They love being part of it. They love being able to bring a character to life, and I just really appreciate it.
Yeah,
so great stuff, man.
That's the episode. Well, we hope you enjoyed today's episode. We would love it if you could subscribe on whatever platform you get your podcast. And if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to leave us a review. Again, it really helps us get discovered.
What did you think of National Treasure? What do you think we missed? Follow us on social at Real Chums to let us know and join in on the conversation, or email us at you're@realchums.com. You can find me at Danny at Rubio_TV.
And you can find me, Marcel, on Twitter at Marstrosity, MarCTROSITY.
Join us next week as we begin our month-long discussion on superhero movies that are not based on comic books with M. Night Shyamalan's Unbreakable.
Remind me, have you seen this?
I have not seen this movie.
I
will probably end up watching all three of these movies.
You don't need to watch the last one.
That's what I heard.
But
there's three, right? Though, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm bummed that you didn't experience this like one by one, and that you know that there's three, because when that second one came out,
it was a huge. Truly, dude, true story. I was literally we'd been talking. Someone was like, "Did you ever watch that movie with Bruce Willis? Bruce Willis.
Bruce Willis, yeah,
as a superhero." I'm like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, it was like some." And then literally a week later, they announced Split, and they were like, "Dude, this movie's the second one to this other movie." And I'm like, "What?" And I was like, I need to watch it.
I encourage you, Danny, and our listeners, if you haven't seen Unbreakable, just go into it as its own movie.
Okay.
Don't think of it as a greater cinematic universe. Just, this is it.
Yeah.
I love this movie.
Okay. We'll see you next week.
Later.